It is a fraud for the government to pretend that it is not interested in UFOs. In fact, as most of you know, it has been a matter of high and probably preeminent interest for decades. As Richard Dolan told us, I think it was yesterday, an early Canadian ufologist, Wilbert Smith, who was a senior employee at the Department of Transport, where I later became minister, not long before I actually arrived there, wrote a top-secret memorandum to the Controller of Communications, dated November 21st, 1950, asking permission to set up a group to study the geomagnetic aspects of UFOs' propulsion systems. And as part of the memorandum, Smith said that he had made discreet inquiries through the Canadian Embassy staff in Washington, and he had obtained the following information: that the matter is the most highly classified subject in the United States government, rating higher even than the H-bomb. Flying saucers exist. Their modus operandi is unknown, but a concentrated effort is being made by a small group headed by Dr. Vannevar Bush. The entire matter is considered by the United States authorities to be of tremendous significance. So, Dr. Vannevar Bush, who was one of America's preeminent scientists at the time, and a team of experts he had assembled, were already working on back engineering by 1950. Many people who are interested in the subject of UFOs use one of the Roswell crashes of July 1947 as their starting line. Recent evidence, however, confirms that the U.S. Army Air Corps was in the crash retrieval business even before that. Paula Harris, on July the 5th, 2010, interviewed two men, Jose Padilla and Remy Baca, who were aged 9 and 7 at the time, who witnessed a saucer crash on Padilla land near San Antonio, New Mexico, in August of 1945. In her new book, Exopolitics, Stargate to a New Reality, Paula gives the detailed account of what these men saw as children. The actual crash, the creature's appearance, the pieces of the craft that they took, the military cleanup, and an in-depth analysis of the significance of the case. Well, I had the opportunity to chat with Remy Baca by telephone recently, and the thing that stuck in my mind was that when Sergeant Avila came to ask Mr. Padilla permission to enter his land to retrieve the object, quote unquote, he referred to it as, quote, an experimental weather balloon. Doesn't that sound familiar? That was exactly the same ruse that Brigadier General Roger Ramey used in reference to the Roswell incident 2 years later. Apparently, there was a considerable lack of imagination on the Army's part. In later years, the Air Force that had succeeded the Army Air Corps became much more sophisticated in its misinformation and disinformation techniques. These include having the star visitors portrayed in movies as sinister beings that we should be fearful of, probably without justification. Another fascinating case that Paula brought to my attention not long ago was that of Charles Hall, the physicist and information technology professional who worked as an airman meteorologist at the USAF bombing and gunnery range at Indian Springs, Nevada in the 1960s. Charles worked in close contact with tall whites, a species that I had been previously unfamiliar with. And over a period of months, he learned to lose his fear of the aliens who lived, worked, and played on Air Force property. In a 2-hour telephone conversation, he gave me many of the characteristics of the whites, described the scout ships in which they traveled around, and said most of them had been assembled in the United States.